allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Could we have a roll call, please?
Roger Brock.
Here.
William Hutton.
Here.
Dennis Radowski.
Here.
Nancy Reagan.
Here.
Kathleen Hill.
Here.
5 present. We have a quorum.
Next item on the agenda is our minutes. Do we have a motion in regard to the minutes dated December 6, 2022?
I'd like to make that motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Roger Brock.
Yes.
William Hutton.
Yes.
Dennis Radowski.
Yes.
Nancy Reagan.
Yes.
Kathleen Hill. 5 ayes, 0 nays. Motion passed.
Could we have a motion in regard to the minutes of January 31st, 2023 to as far as wait until next month, as far as table until next month's meeting on March 28th?
I'd like to make a motion to table those minutes.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote?
Roger Brock.
Yes.
William Hutton.
Yes.
Dennis Radowski.
Yes.
Nancy Reagan.
Yes.
Kathleen Hill.
Yes?
5 ayes, 0 nays. Motion passed.
We have no old business.
Actually, Madam Chairperson, I just want to remind the board that at the January meeting, we did have some cases that were tabled, and they were tabled to the March meeting. So just be aware of that. Will be, to the extent that we know at this point, that will be coming up at the March meeting.
All right, the first item under new business is Z-23-04, the petition of NH Vegas LLC for a conditional use regarding Title 10, Section 10.3, 10.11, parens 3, to allow an automobile fueling station in a C4 General Commercial District located at 1051 Indianapolis Boulevard in the city of Hammond. Have all the requirements been sent and met?
All of the notification requirements have been met.
All right. Do we have a petitioner that would like to come before us? State your name and your address, please.
My name is Mike Zell, Z as in zebra, E-L-L. Address is 1658 Stony Creek Court, Valparaiso, Indiana, 46385.
Okay.
Okay. My name is Mike Zell. I'm here on behalf of NH Vegas LLC and the Luke family of brands. We are here seeking a conditional use approval of an automotive fueling station in a C4 General Commercial District at 105 Indianapolis Boulevard, Hammond, Indiana. In keeping with the city's efforts to improve the physical attractiveness and marketability of the business community in Hammond's Robertsdale neighborhood, NH Vegas and Luke Brands is proposing the demolition of an existing gas station facility and construction of a new fueling station and convenience store facility. The new fueling station design will reduce the number of current pumps from 12 down to 8. Those will be brand new pumps installed at the time of construction. We would be reducing the size of the fuel canopy from 135 by 95 feet to 110 by 50 feet, and would include installation of new fiberglass underground storage tanks, fuel piping, and containment systems. The new convenience store would also include Luke's larger updated 3,960 square foot design and full service food offering. This would be consistent with a similar project that we're currently working on in the city of Hammond at 165th and Calumet. The estimated $4 million redevelopment of the property is consistent with NH Vegas and Luke family of brands continued commercial investment in the Hammond Marina District. So our petition and determinations were submitted earlier and have been reviewed by the commission. And we've worked closely with the planning and engineering departments to address any recommendations and clarifications they have had regarding the project. So based on our determinations presented in our petition, and on behalf of NH Vegas and the Luke family of brands, I respectfully request approval for petition for automobile fueling station conditional use permit.
Members have any questions?
I do, Madam President, if I may. Do you have an enclosed garbage containment area? I'm not seeing that on here, or is it my eyesight?
So there is one proposed, and that was addressed with the engineering department. There has been an updated, I'm not sure if you guys have the updated site plan most recently, but I did bring copies for that. I believe Mr. Poland has seen that copy. It would be different than that one, yeah.
Different than this one?
There should be a smaller one that has some updated information.
But yes, there is an enclosed dumpster that we have on the most recent site plan.
Thanks. Where? Oh, right there. I can't see it.
On the northeast side there, I believe, by the additional parking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing else, thank you.
Mr. Zell, can you talk about a couple of other things regarding the parking and the cross-parking agreement?
So there has been a draft of a cross-parking agreement that's been drafted. We've sent that to Mr. Poland for review. Ownership, Tom Collins Jr., managing member of NH Vegas, he's out of town currently, so getting an executed version of that was not possible at the time, but he has communicated via email that his intention is to sign that pending approval and of the entitlements that we're asking for. So it's ready to go and in place.
And I think you already alluded to this, but just kind of address it more formally. The revised site plan that we just distributed incorporates the most recent comments from the city engineer when it comes to a couple of things off the top of my head. Moving the pumps a little bit closer together, I think by a foot, and how the traffic is directed around the building. For the Plan Commission Board of Zoning Appeal members to understand, the Tenant A, Tenant B building is a separate lot and is a proposed development. It is not what is before this board. The only thing that is before this board is the actual gas station on Lot 1. But the cross-parking agreement that we just referenced is for about 5 spaces that would actually fall on Lot 2, but would be to the benefit of Lot 1.
Correct. Yep.
Right, I have a question. There is only one entrance and exit that you're proposing?
So technically, sorry, getting my bearings here. There's a right in and right out on the west side of the property there. And then an entrance and ingress and egress at the stoplight that would be on the east side of the property. And again, going through the other lot that's not in consideration for this evening, but you can gain access to the gas station facility from there, as well as the right in, right out with the raised dog bone that was requested from the engineering department there.
from the property, you would be able to make a left-hand turn in and out at some point?
Yes, you would go back to the entrance at the stoplight there at the east side of the property, and you could then make a left-hand turn via the light signal.
So the, whether you call it a dog bone or a pork chop, whatever we call it, you have to kind of understand that in this location of Indianapolis Boulevard, there is a median in the Illinois-bound or Indiana-bound traffic direction. And you can kind of see like there's a left turn lane that's represented right at the pork chop that is going to, another entrance into the development that's on the southerly side of Indianapolis Boulevard. So, yes, all of the traffic, in essence, the Illinois traffic will have to come through the traffic signal, yet they could exit out and go back to Illinois by using the pork chop.
Yep.
And then Indiana traffic inbound can go into the traffic signal in on the pork chop, but exit out through the traffic signal to go back into Robertsdale.
Correct. Thank you.
Madam President, I do have another question after listening to Mr. Poland. My question would be, if I were to come in off of Indianapolis Boulevard, right turn only, to get gasoline, and all 4 pumps have cars, where would I go? Have you worked this out with the city engineer?
So they have been in communication, and some of that is what Mr. Poland alluded to was shrinking down some of those pump requirements to make sure that there's ample traffic flow throughout the parking lot for situations like that. Yes. So yeah, you would be able to encircle the parking lot and find a new direction to go without any obstructions.
And Mr. Hutton, so Mr. Hutton, Mr. Button did have his traffic engineer review the site plan in accordance with the engineer's gas station development regulations. So yes, what is basically being indicated that has all been taken into account based on that review, the stacking, the traffic flow. It is basically, if you really look at the way the dotted lines are, it does kind of imply that if you're coming in on the west side of the property, you have to go to the store and come into the pumps from that side. If you look at the dotted lines and you see the turning radius, it's not intended for someone to do the right in and make a sharp 180-degree turn to make another 180-degree turn to get into the pumps.
Thank you for that, Mr. Poland. One last question. These pumps, can you have vehicles on each side of the pump or
Yes.
one side?
Yep,
Okay.
they're dual-sided, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
To be able to service 16 cars.
Correct. But again, we currently have 12 dispensers that are set up that way. So we could service 24 cars. This reduces it down to 8.
Now, you stated you would be demolishing the present site.
Yes.
Will you be demolishing it totally before you start rebuilding?
That is the intention, yes.
One other comment, just for the record purposes, or one other question. There was discussions of the oil-water separator that we require for gas stations, and Tom, you can help me. I believe that's been addressed. Is that correct?
I believe they were addressing that with HDEM.
So I believe that's under discussion, but that, my understanding, it would be part of more of a planning and construction approval as opposed to special use or special condition. So we were trying to adhere to the special condition. But yes, that's something that.
Yeah, but you guys do plan on, yes.
Yes, correct. I mean, that's been consistent with what we've done with our other projects of this nature within Hammond, yes.
Any other questions?
hang on. So, so at this point, you haven't finalized that construction engineering detail of the oil water separator?
I'm not 100% positive on that, me personally. I'm not working on that side of it. But I know that from notes that I was given about this, that yes, that's under consideration. So, and again, I believe we've done a number of these projects within the city of Hammond, adhered to those guidelines. So that would be consistent with what we would want to do here, yes.
Yes, and that particular point is well taken. And,
Yep.
and yes, you have a track record of complying with this provision. Or,
Thank
with this
you.
provision.
Yep.
Anything else? And we will move into public expression. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak pro or con? If there is, please come forward, state your name and address, and sign in, please.
Good evening. Mark Kowinski, City of Hammond. This station falls within the district that I oversee, the first district, and Luke Oil has already put up 2 gas stations or rebuilt 2 gas stations on the boulevard in the Marina District. Both of them have been very successful and an upgrade to the area. I believe that this 3rd station is going from 12 pumps to 8, and given that there are 2 other stations that are actually larger from Luke already functioning, I don't see traffic issues stacking up at this station. The station never had that issue previously. I don't foresee that happening this time. And Luke Oil has been very good at being compliant to our recommendations, our wishes, and have really upgraded that area. So I support this move, and I am eager to see it go forward. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? And we will close this period of public comments. Did you have anything else you would like to mention? Staff members have any other comments? All right. Because we have the staff report.
So in the staff report for Z2304, staff recommendation reads, staff has reviewed the petitioner's request and recommends that the BZA grant the conditional use permit should the board feel the petitioner has met the standards subject to 1, technical review and final approval of site and building plans by city staff. 2, submittal and final approval of a photometric plan. 3, recording with the recorder's office the cross-parking easement between Lot 1 and Lot 2 of the re-subdivision of Luke's 267 addition to the city of Hammond. 4, bollards installed between the convenience store and the row of parking spaces not inhibiting ADA compliant access, in compliance with all federal ADA guidelines. 5, no outdoor displays of tires nor any other wares to be allowed. And 6, compliance with Hammond City Code Chapters 94, 97, 98, 101, 132, 150, and 160, and in particular sections enforcing litter, junk, trash receptacles, snow removal, and the harboring of a public nuisance as to maintain a sanitary, safe, and aesthetically pleasing property.
Want to add another recommendation considering the water separation measures at this time?
I'm going to make the comment that the whole question of the oil, water, and separator would have been, or it would be covered under number 1 in subject 2.
The board have any other, yes?
Madam President, I'm looking at number 4, Mr. Novak. Bollards installed between the convenience store and rural parking spaces. Is there a particular size bollard they're supposed to have? That's number 1. And number 2, are those bollards shown on the site plan?
So the bollards are shown, they're pretty tiny, it's kind of hard, they're tiny little
not
black
seeing them.
dots. Yeah, they're little black dots, right at the top of the parking spaces by the main door. But we've been assured by Dan Tersman with Luke's that, you know,
Okay.
it needs to be at least 5 feet spaced apart, at least one of them, a pair of them for ADA access.
Okay,
Well, I think, again, that's a construction detail.
thank you.
And, you know, graphically, it looks like there is a bollard that is right in the center of a striped area. And so there needs to be some conversations and adjustments to make sure that they are not physically impeding the access, the ADA access to the building.
Thank you.
We have findings of fact that have been proposed by staff. Members have any comments, questions, any additions, deletions they would like to make? Hearing none. Do we have a motion to adopt the staff report and their recommendations and the findings of fact into the record?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, roll call vote?
Dennis Radowski,
Yes.
Nancy Reagan,
Yes.
Roger Brock,
Yes.
William Hutton.
Yes.
Kathleen Hill,
Yes?
5 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, motion passed.
Okay, do we have a motion in regard to Z 23-04 for the conditional use permit?
I'll make that motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Sick.
Go ahead.
Guess who seconded?
Oh, I second.
Do we have a roll call vote?
Dennis Radowski,
Yes.
Nancy Reagan,
Yes.
Roger Brock.
Yes.
William Hutton.
Yes.
Kathleen Hill.
Yes?
5 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, motion passed.
Good luck.
To the board members, I would ask that you pull all your microphones closer because it is very hard to hear some of you. Not you, Mr. Hutton.
Can't hear you.
Not who?
Not him.
We have, next item is Z-23-05, petition of Cube Sport Complex LLC for developmental variance regarding Title 7, Sections 13.50 and Title 21, Section 21.21, parentheses C, to allow an increase in exterior signage in terms of square footage and a number of signs in a CS1 open space and recreational district located in J.F. Mahoney Drive in the city of Hammond. Have all notification requirements been met?
Yes, they have.
Right, do we have a petitioner? Would you like to state your name and address and sign in, please?
Frank Buck, 8815 West 93rd Avenue, St. John, Indiana. I'm here, first I want to apologize to the board for not seeking approval before putting the sign on the building. I meant no disrespect, but we were under the gun to host a state tournament, which is a real big deal for us, and quite frankly, every week I'm identifying people that come in, what the building is. So that's why I'm here to ask for help for the sign.
All right, want to tell us about your sign?
It is composite, it's a aluminum plastic sign that we glued to the building. There's no lights on it. It's just so people can see it from Kennedy Avenue. We wanted to be able to visible from Kennedy Avenue. So we mocked it up and kind of designed it ourselves and installed it. So it doesn't bug any of the neighbors, it doesn't, it's not lit.
Yes, it's facing directly towards Kennedy Avenue.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. And as you stated, you have had issues with visitors sometimes cutting through the residential neighborhood because they missed that first turn.
Yes. Yeah. And they're always wanting to know where the Gene Shepherd Center is.
Yeah,
So they all,
yeah.
Mr. Buck, are you able to talk about some of the dimensional math calculations? Or would you prefer that we have the staff enter that to the record?
yeah, I really don't know the size, because what we did is we kind of mocked it up in paper and stuck it on the building, and then went back, all right, let's make it 2 inches bigger. But I think I submitted what it was in there.
So Tom, if you could just go through that into the record.
Yes, so the sign itself, it has 2 components, but we measured it as one by drawing a box around it. And that box was 11 feet 6 inches tall, 28 feet 4 inches wide, which comes out to 327 square feet, hence why the petitioner's requesting 330 square feet. But the sign only covers about 7% of the wall it is mounted on. That wall is 23 feet tall and 200 feet long, which is 4,600 square feet. So it's less than 10% of the wall covered by the sign, which is comparatively small in context, although it is a large sign. Much of it is about 1/3 of that measurement also is just the space between the components. So although it is a large sign, one could argue, I'm sure the petitioner would argue that it's low impact in context. It's also, I should add, is mounted about 450 feet away from the Kennedy Avenue right-of-way, which is where it's meant to be seen from, hence the larger size.
Right, any other things you'd like to comment on? Can we take questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Hutton.
Thank you. Mr. Buck, good to see you again.
You too.
Thank you. Is this sign going to be illuminated?
No,
So not ever,
not ever.
except for this little light that's by it right now? That's it?
Parking lot lights light that
Got
up.
it. Okay, thank
It's
you.
fine, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll go into public comments. Does anyone from the public like to speak for or against the sign? Introduce.
Good evening. Mark Kowinski, Councilman, 1st District, City of Hammond. I want to comment about the Ice Cube and its ownership and investors, that I feel very grateful that they chose Hammond to invest all that money into a product that is catching on in North Lake County, and I'm so grateful that they put this building up and took the risk to make it happen in Hammond. The sign, although it sounds huge, isn't in comparison to that wall of the building. It's a large surface, and it will actually be dwarfed on that wall. But luckily and hopefully it'll be seen as far away as Kennedy, so that people can finally find it without drifting around. So I'm glad that we're at this point to have this happen. The Ice Cube is also home to a Hammond hockey team. The Bishop Knoll Warriors practice and have games there. And by the way, Bishop Knoll's hockey team this past weekend at the Ice Box in South Bend won all 3 of their games to move on to the state finals for the 3A championship game to be played in Evansville, Indiana, this coming Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. come join me in a caravan,
Sounds like a commercial.
and it's going to be a load of fun. And this is Bishop Noll's home. The Ice Cube in Hammond is Bishop Noll's home, as well as Purdue Northwest. Please get this sign up so people will stop drifting through the neighborhood. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, we will close this period of public comments.
Madam Chairman, I have a question for the petitioner.
Do you have a question?
Question for the petitioner. Mr. Buck, could you come back to the podium? Could you clarify for me, I know we are being straightforward that we know it's already installed, but was that something that you and your staff did, or did a signed contractor do?
We had a signed contract that I worked with, because I don't want them drilling holes in the building. It's a special building, it's their freezer panel, so I worked along with the economy.
And so, and I believe, if I recall correctly, we know that there's no permit that was filed for it. So
We applied, but we didn't get it
you-
because of
okay.
this.
Actually, thank you for the correction, that you applied for it, you didn't get it because we knew this had to happen, and
Right.
then they went ahead and installed it. So just for the board members, that is going to be a matter that we have to work through with code enforcement as to if there's going to be a penalty, but we have to, assuming the approval of the variance goes through tonight, then we still have to resolve that permit issue.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Whatever I have to do, I have to do. I appreciate you guys working with me. Tom has been phenomenal with me. helping me, so.
And you and I have had many years of conversation.
Absolutely.
So, all right, fair enough. Thank you.
I have a question. Are you equipped to have major events there as far
We are.
as bringing people in, like instead of taking that bus somewhere else? You could
We
have
are.
it there?
We are. We had the state, Councilman said, we had the state tournament for the JV a month ago, and it brought in probably 200 families. So they stayed at the hotels, they stayed overnight, and it was a nice event. So,
Have you gotten into as far as the groups that have the synchronized skating and things like that, where you have them practicing or anything?
this is Purdue's home ice too, so Purdue has a D1 team and a D3 team. So they have two teams, and next year, I believe, they're starting at synchro ice skating.
Okay.
So they're gonna start, they'll have another team, 3 teams plus that synchro, from what I'm told. So we have a figure skating program there that's growing. And like Mark said, we brought back the Hammond Mohawks, that's our youth group, and it's just grown incredible. From 50 kids when we started, there's over 100 now from the following year. So we expect 150 next year. So we brought the name back, the kids love it, and
Well, there's a lot of synchronized ice skating in the area around
Oh,
here,
yeah.
with Chicago and all that, too.
see, they don't know we're there, that's the problem. We
That's
don't have
right.
the money to advertise like we should, so they don't know that building's there. That's why, it helps to have that sign on there. Oh, there it is. So,
Any other questions? Could we have the staff report?
So in the staff report regarding Z 2305, the staff recommendation reads as following. Staff has reviewed.
Tom, hold on a second. Councilman, did you want to say something?
If I can just interject one thing, and although
We'll let you do that.
I appreciate it. And although the sign is up before the permit was granted, I guess, and before code had a look at it, this isn't setting a precedent. I know that lots of projects get done in the city of Hammond before the permit gets picked up. And I even had that case happen across the street from me recently, where somebody had their stairs and porch done before the permit. And code's response to that was, as long as they come after it's done and they inspect it and it meets inspection and code standards, they passed it. So
Well, I would say that we don't want to say that there's lots of projects that are getting through without permits, because that would be the wrong message to send to the community.
Brian, you're right.
But
Some have happened.
We know that it does happen, and I think you have to, just to put this in the context with how the inspections department works with one property owner versus another. It really depends upon when it is caught, how big is the project, is it, yes, they're checking to make sure it's done code compliant, but, we know there's issues with fences and porches and steps and things like that. But we always strive to treat everybody equally and as fairly as possible in the inspections department, in the city planning department when it comes to situations like this. We have to make sure that we get the variances or any approvals to the BZA done properly, even though we don't like to do them after the fact.
Absolutely. I just wanted to make a point that this isn't setting a precedent. Thank you.
So we're at.
We ready for the staff report?
Yes, okay, so the staff recommendation reads as follows. Staff has reviewed the petitioner's request and recommends that the BZA grant the developmental variance should the board feel the petitioner has met the standards.
All right. We have some proposed findings of fact from the staff. Any questions, comments, additions, deletions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adopt the staff report and the proposed findings of fact as presented?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second, roll call vote?
Dennis Radowski,
Yes.
Nancy Reagan,
Yes.
Roger Brock,
Yes.
William Hutton.
Yes.
Kathleen Hill,
Yes.
5 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, motion passed.
Do we have a motion in regard to Z-23-05 for the developmental variance?
I'll make the motion.
To
Approve.
approve?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Dennis Radowski,
Yes.
Nancy Reagan,
Yes.
Roger Brock,
Yes.
William Hutton.
Yes.
Kathleen Hill.
Yes.
5 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, motion passed.
Good luck. Right, we have Z-23-06, petition of Alstom Transport for developmental variance regarding Title 12, Section 12.31 yard regulation requirement to reduce the 200-foot setback to a 105-foot side yard setback in an I-2 zoning district located at 1636 Summer Street in the city of Hammond. Have all notification requirements been met?
Yes, they have.
All right, we have a petitioner.
Madam President,
Yes,
I would like to recuse myself and excuse myself, please.
I was going to ask. Okay,
Go ahead.
I did.
Oh.
You did it yourself. I don't have to.
And just, just to clarify for the record, Mr. Hutton does have a conflict of interest.
I noticed. Are you departing or are you just sitting in the audience, Mr. Hudson?
Ryan Toringa, from Toringa Engineering. My address is 2038 Maplewood Circle, Highland, Indiana. We were the designing engineers on the project. The variance we're requesting is for the reduction from 200 feet to 100 feet for the building setback from Maplewood. The initial 200-foot...
Excuse me.
What's that?
You said from where?
Is it from Maplewood? I don't have the...
White
Oak. I live in White Oak Estates, Maplewood Circle, so I get the two confused, I guess. It is our understanding that the 200-foot variance for industrial areas is to prevent any industrialization or any byproducts of that from hampering the adjoining residential. Well, this building itself is not intended to be used for any industrial purposes. It's a training facility / resting area for the truck drivers, along with a large parking lot for them to be able to park their trucks. So we don't believe that there will be any issues with reducing the setback and having the building closer to the residential area on White Oak.
Can you address the whole site when it comes to the parking improvements and its setback? And then can you also address the landscaping plan that's been put into the documents?
I believe the parking setback does meet the requirements. I don't believe there was any variance required for that. I believe we're 40 feet away from the right-of-way, which is the required setback for parking.
Yes, that is the point that I wanted you to make.
And the landscaping itself, there is an existing fence along White Oak, and with this proposal, in order to help make the site look better and improve the overall quality of the site, there will be landscaping placed along that fence, along White Oak. There is a landscaping plan that we are going to adhere to and follow all ordinances set forth by Hammond as far as the landscaping goes. Do our best to follow them all as we improve the site visibility.
Okay, and I don't know if you can or Mr. Hutton can, for the record, I believe it's 12 trees and a series of bushes that serpentine go around the trees. Is that correct? Can you come to the microphone and confirm that, please?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
State your name and sign in, please.
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Poland.
And the
And those-
chairperson asked you to state your name for the record, please.
Oh,
Sign in.
my name is William Hutton, 6832 Calumet Avenue, Hammond, Indiana.
Don't forget to sign in, please.
I'm on it. Hang on one second.
Thank you, Mr. Hutton.
You're welcome. The owner, who is here with us tonight, if you'd like to hear from him, but we feel confident that we are going to be in compliance with the city ordinances. These trees will be set back behind a 6-foot or an 8-foot tall solid fence. This is not a cyclone fence, commissioners. This is a solid wall that's been there. Metal.
So you're saying that the existing fence that is there
Right.
is a solid metal fence?
Yes.
That's what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. A little hard to hear sometimes.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The representatives of the ownership, you fully understand the detail of the landscaping, and you are okay with that?
Correct, we will follow.
Wait a minute. You have to
Sign
state
into-
your name and your address and sign.
Jose Diaz, 1646 Summer Street, Hammond, Indiana. And yes, we will follow all the guidelines from the city of Hammond with landscaping.
Okay. And then also for the board members, and any of you can respond as necessary, is that we did identify that the fence that was just described does encroach into the White Oak right-of-way. And there was also a metal shed that also encroached into the right-of-way. And the discussion was that the metal shed was going to be moved, correct?
Correct.
And that we're going to pursue.
I used to this side.
Yeah. And we've indicated that in regards to the fence, that they can pursue a right of encroachment through the Board of Public Works and Safety, that the fence can remain in the public right-of-way until such time, perhaps that the city widens the street or some other circumstance that would allow or would require the fence to be moved. But they have a right to, this agreement, once it's granted, they would have a right to maintain the fence, repair it as necessary, and keep it there until some other reason has happened. Conversely with that, the discussion of the fence on Summer Street, and that in my conversations with the city engineer and the street construction project that's currently ongoing or will be happening soon, one of the things that is a little unclear at this point in time is if that fence, which only encroaches like 1 or 2 feet or something, we don't know it. I don't know at this point if the construction project is going to require that to be moved. So it's a little bit different circumstance than what our previous conversation on that point, because the city engineer has commented that he needs to revisit the details of the construction drawings to see if that becomes an issue or not.
We understand.
Okay.
Since you have construction going on, is there a possibility the fence is not built until the construction is done with?
The fence exists now.
Okay.
And the construction project will start in a couple of months. So therefore, the city engineer is looking at the designs to see if it is an issue or not, and that would affect whether or not they can get a right of encroachment for that fence.
And if we have to move the fence, we have no issues setting it back to our property to where it belongs.
Yes, and thank you for saying that. And the other thing, just for context purposes for the board, is that we just approved a re-subdivision of this property where we helped redefine that public right-of-way line in the plat process so that, we knew it was there, but it was based on a conversion of the legal description. So this is all interrelated and is, into how we're proceeding in addressing an existing situation.
Any other comments the three of you would like to make or individually make? Thank you. I believe we're at public expression. I see somebody standing up. Can you please state your name and address and sign?
Sign my name first. You want me to sign my name?
Yes, sign and state your name, please.
Put your address down, too. Also.
Good evening. I'm Jose Galvan, 1521 Summer Street. First, I want to thank you. Welcome to a neighborhood, and thank you for investing your money in the neighborhood. We really need people like you. And another thing, thank you for keeping your truck off of residential blocks. And thank you because the noise level in all the areas.
Mr. Galvin, you have to talk to the board. You should not be talking to them.
Okay, sorry about that. I just want to thank them for actually keeping the neighborhood better. The noise level is so low to nothing. And just want to say that they have been, since they moved to the first facility, they've been a very good neighbors. So I thank them for buying the property next to it, and I'm just glad that they're there. Just one thing I want to ask is if there is a, what you call it, rainwater pond to keep the rainwater created all around the property from going into the nearby blocks, since at this moment we don't have public storm drainage system on the block of White Oak or Birch Avenue. That's why I just want to make sure that if it is a plan to create a pond to keep the water from leaving. Other than that, I really want to say thank you to the board and thank you to them for all the work that has been going on, because it actually creates a better neighborhood with more progress. So I thank everybody, okay? Good night.
Thank you. Anyone else? Would the petitioner like to address the comments that were just made?
either Taringa or Hutton. The basic question is, has the drainage been addressed, and whether or not there's going to be a detention basin or of some kind?
As far as I'm aware, there's not going to be a detention area. There was already a storm sewer system in the area servicing the current site that will be reused and renovated as necessary as the construction goes on.
Have you done hard surface calculations on the parking lot in the building, and if that has changed, increased, the hard surface has increased?
I was not responsible for those calculations, and I do not have them, so I'm unaware of any differences between the impervious area for the site as it currently exists or the proposed.
Okay, Mr. Hutton, can you address that?
I can't give you a definitive answer. I'm sorry. I can't give you a definitive answer on that particular question, but I do know that there were areas on the site that had buildings on those areas, of course, that had a hard roof, and that water would run off of that roof. And some of that area has been replaced with some solid pavement so they can use that for parking. We can get back to you with that answer, Mr. Poland, if you will. But I would also like to add that we will get with Taringa tomorrow and talk to them about some type of retention to help. But let us talk to Taringa. We might be able to provide some ponding of retaining or detaining water on that.
And I would suggest also a discussion with the city engineer about the street construction project, because I don't know if they are increasing the city public sewer system. And if that is an impact as to if you do have to do detention or to restrict the flow into the sewer system. So it is a little bit more involved.
That's a very good point, and we'll do that, absolutely.
Okay.
Good idea.
Okay.
So that was an answer to the public hearing question. So this was an answer to the public hearing. Okay.
So we can close this period of public expression. Any other questions from board members?
So, Ryan, Mr. Taringa.
Yes.
I know the question I'm going to ask right now is something that I did address to Mr. Don Taringa.
Mm-hmm.
And it is something that from a procedural order, that one of the steps that was missed in the order was a determination of compliance from the Redevelopment Commission. And I had passed on the submittal information, and he and I, well, it's an email conversation, but nonetheless, it's a discussion regarding when the engineering will be done or when preliminary engineering is done. And that's kind of related to this discussion we had about the detention basin.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to move that process along to the extent that we can, and get that through the Redevelopment Commission. And we understand that probably at this moment in time, you don't have final engineering and you're not technically ready to go permits. But between the discussions that needs to happen with the city engineer on the street and the sewer capacity, the detention basin, the hard surface, the parking lot surface materials, we need to kind of move that along and work towards getting this step through the Redevelopment Commission.
Understood. As far as I'm aware, we are pretty close with the plans, but we wanted to ensure that we have the building in the proper location before we can finalize anything,
Sure.
which is dependent upon this variance. So, thank you.
All right.
Any other questions from the staff? So could we have the staff report, please?
Yeah, one of the things I just want to comment on for technical reasons is that the provision we're talking about in the zoning ordinance is an additional setback for the building of any building in an industrial zone that abuts a residential zone. That's really the specific nature of this question. And we have it is a 200-foot setback from the residential district, and that technically would be measured by the center line of the adjacent street. So that goes into this calculation of where the 200-foot measurement is and the 105 feet, just understand where it's being measured from. Obviously, throughout the city of Hammond, we have a lot of industrial buildings that are close to residential areas, and that this provision that really goes back to the 1981 zoning ordinance is something that, when it comes to new construction, that we want to make sure it's being properly addressed. The other thing that the staff was very important for the staff was that, what is the reasons upon which that we want to reduce that setback, and therefore the building would be physically closer to the residential neighborhood. So the question then becomes, what is a compensatory buffer? And that's really where the landscaping comes in, is that it's very important to have that green barrier or buffer, as a better word, between industrial and residential, and that's very, very important on how we want to improve some of those conditions where you have two very different zoning districts abutting each other, and what is the appropriate buffer. That being said, the staff has reviewed the petitioner's request and recommends that the BZA grant the developmental variance should the board feel the petitioner has met the standards, subject to, number one, the final determination from the city engineer regarding the encroachment on Summer Street and the pavement drainage of the parking area, and amend that slightly. That's also this detention basin question that we talked about. Two, the receipt of the application of the right of encroachment from the Board of Public Works and Safety. I already discussed it. That's primarily White Oak, and then we'll see if it's needed on Summer Street. Three, the final determination from HDEM regarding the Phase 1 and Phase 2. That is a recommendation coming from environmental management based on the historical usage of this property, and unfortunately we didn't address that like we should have prior to the reading of the staff report, but it is a question of making sure that the environmental conditions of the ground are safe for construction or for workers, and for the confirmation of the varieties of landscape to meet the requirements. That is in your packet where we have confirmed what those varieties are. 5, the finalization of the technical requirements of the subdivision plat. That is just literally completing the subdivision plat process and all that. And then 6, receipt of the determination of compliance from the Hammond Redevelopment Commission for the plan for the Hammond Central redevelopment area. Mr. Hutton, I think, wanted to add something onto this.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Poland. All the items that you've talked about are good with us, and the one item I do want to respond to is the Phase 2 environmental. Our client has been feverishly going through his files trying to find that report, and it looks like he's going to have a new one made. So he's working on that, and we'll keep in touch with you when our client has hired a company.
Yes, okay, so in that way, yes, we will, once you get that, we'll coordinate with Ron Novak at the Environmental Management Department, and he's coming up behind you.
Oh, no.
Look behind you.
The report, the Phase 1 report that we provided, it was from 2019. We have started talking to our environmental engineer to get a recent Phase 1 so we could present to you guys, and go from there, see what the report says, and get a fresh one. And if we have to move on, then we do what we have to do.
Yes, and I, obviously, whether you need to do phase two, I will defer to Ron Novak over the Environmental Management Department. So if you're going to get an updated phase one, just let us know when you have it, and we'll coordinate with our local environmental management.
Correct. It will take about a little over 30 days, according to our environmental gentleman.
Okay.
So as soon as I have it, I will.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We have as far as proposed findings of facts, any addition, recommendation, deletion that the board would like to make? Hearing none. Do we have a motion to adopt the staff report and its amendments, and its recommendations and amendments, and the proposed findings of fact as presented into the record?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Dennis Radowski,
Yes.
Nancy Reagan,
Yes.
Roger Brown,
Yes.
William Hutton.
Abstain?
Oh, I'm sorry. Kathleen Hill,
Yes?
4 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention, motion passed.
Do we have a motion from the board in regard to Z-23-06 for the developmental variance for Altum Transport Company?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Roll call vote?
Dennis Radowski,
Yes.
Nancy Reagan,
Yes.
Roger Brown.
Yes.
Kathleen Hill,
Yes?
4 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention, motion passed.
Good luck. Next item on our agenda.
Yes, you can come back.
Please let the record state that Mr. Hutton is adjourned. Any staff comments?
I just want to make a couple points.
Want to sign in?
Again, please, you have to put your microphones closer. It is really hard to hear on this side of the room. And I know some of you have louder voices than others, but, you know, I know from council meetings, it's hard to hear out here, okay? Secondly, I didn't bring this up during the meeting, but I want to make a reminder that when the question for the action of the decision of how the board is going to approve or not, we have always requested the staff that you say approve with the conditions of the staff report. We want that motion to be structured that way, that it's clearer in the records that you are including all of those conditions. Theoretically, you have the right to remove a condition. I certainly hope you never do that. But that's why we have to have it in the record that you are accepting officially in the approval process those recommendations, or the subject twos, as we refer to them. Okay?
Could you repeat exactly how you want that stated, approved with?
You can say, including all of the subject to conditions as stated in the staff report. That is the simplest way. You don't necessarily have to read all 6 of them in or whatever it is. That would be a bit overkill, but that would be the simplest way to do it.
You want it to say conditions or recommendations?
Conditions, they are not, at the point that you're making an approval, and I think that's a good point for semantics. In a staff report, they are recommendations to subject to. The action of what you're doing when you add it to the motion, they become conditions of approval. That's the distinction that we are trying to get you to make, that so therefore it's more, I don't want to say it wasn't legally binding, but it's clear on the legal record that you have said all of these conditions must be met in order for the approval to go forward. Okay?
Right. Sounds good. Just remember.
Right, any public comments?
I did want to say that I think we're still waiting to determine if we have well, I take that back. I said that earlier, that we will be having a March meeting to the extent that we know because of the cases that were tabled. There is some stuff, we haven't formally heard from them, but there is some discussions going on, and I don't know if that will change or not. And then we may have one or two other cases for that meeting. We will adjourn the meeting at 7:07.